teams like Toronto were there.
Yeah,
you see, so that you might pull in more non-championship club supporters to it. From that. Look, I know all the guys that were there had a great time and will be totally wanting to repeat next year, and it looks like the Bash will be around in Blackpool again next year, so I'd expect it to follow a similar format for them, but we'll see how it goes.
There you go. Okay, David Powell.
At St David 2911 said, "Now then, lads, you didn't spot that the Giants Saints game was postponed then?"
I think it's partly because it hadn't happened quite at the time we were recording, and we also have day jobs. Maybe they contributed.
I think it had happened, but it was very quiet, and I didn't see much furore over it and stuff, because it wasn't like it was Wigan related, so no one actually gives a shit, do they?
Well, the furore only really came out once Tony Smith's side had been beaten twice this weekend, and he kind of started windmilling, which, look, he does have a bit of a point, but he chosen to make it the worst possible opportunity for my money.
Look, this weekend was an absolute crowbar thing. It occurred because of an England pre-season training camp that never even went ahead anyway, and it's making the best of it. And everyone, how many people have bitched and moaned and whined about player welfare from having these two double headers within such a short space of time as well as each other, and missing the bigger picture that this is a fucking one-off, this second doubleheader. This isn't par for the course, normal duty. This happened because of something that was going to take place at the start of the year, and all the Super League clubs said, I want my players nearer to the start of the season, so they pushed the start of the season back a week, and then the trip never took off anyway. So it's kind of all a lot of huffing and puffing about now. You know, keep Easter as it is, because it's such a good draw for the fans, financially for the clubs. And you can get away with it once you can manage the fixtures around it. But when you're talking about trying to squeeze it in twice, it's hard to manage the fixtures around it completely. But it won't be happening.
No.
So, but Huddersfield and Saints have done the sensible thing for two teams that can't win the Challenge Cup this year. So, I tell you what, I'd rather have played two games this weekend than been either of those two teams. But hey ho.
There you go. Okay, who's next up then?
Fat Boy Rob says, good points made on the marketing of Magic Weekend. The train guard asked both ways what was going on, as well as most locals asked.
Yeah, that sort of covers off. We did talk a bit about Magic last weekend, didn't we, in terms of could more be made of it?
Well, I was going to roll this into talking about the Bash in a similar vein. On the Sunday, I drove and went onto the main car parking bit in Blackpool, in the south end of Blackpool where the stadium is, and loads of people in the queue because there was only one bloody machine, because you know how useless Blackpool Council can be. One machine was working to pay on cards. One was using it for coins, but couldn't take £1 coins. An absolute embarrassment. Anyway, in this queue, there was loads of people asking what was going on, and they weren't aware at all. Now, conversely, Phil was saying he'd seen posters on the trams and that sort of stuff when he was travelling down from where his parents live up in Bispham. So, there was bits and pieces, but not a lot was done to draw locals in at all.
No. They did host a couple of local fixtures in terms of the Masters and stuff, and get a few people down from like Blackpool Stanley and stuff, but that could just have been them rocking up. I don't think it was necessarily a concerted effort.
Well, they all might have turned up anyway. Exactly. I don't know, but even if they have
could get out in the schools and give out tickets. Again, this is the thing. I say, look, you're not going to sell out the ground both days, so why are we not going into schools and giving out tickets and getting kids down and getting people interested and involved and letting them see it firsthand and experience it in a really nice environment?
Exactly, and
beggars belief to me.
Similar things can be done.
How much has been spent, how much has been brought in. We know when the allocations are reached, so you know what you've got to give away. And there's an entire stand there where they set the TV cameras up, just sat empty.
I mean, there'd be a cost involved in opening it up and that sort of stuff. Let's not forget, but there'd be ways to.
But the broader return on your investment potentially is higher, isn't it? Yeah. So,
but you won't even need that. Give them on the Sunday when no one was there.
Yeah, stick it in stands with everyone else.
Yeah,
exactly. There you know. Now then,
similar thing that, and I think the idea is similar things could be done around the Magic Weekend. It's finding a way to do those cost-effective marketing strategies. It's not just enough to be really good at social media, which is rugby league has become really, really good at social media.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, for the kind of, backwards attitude that people have of how the game's run and how the game works. It's quite forward thinking in a lot of things like that, but it's not touching enough people. That it's a cost effective way, don't get me wrong, but it's not touching enough people right now, and they need to figure that out for these big events, sell them out.
Community engagement and actual people going into schools and doing more that way, I think. Is the way
people talk about how great it would be to have a Castleford against Salford grand final, and don't get me wrong, product on the pitch, that would be the best grand final. So at this stage of the season,
it's not
but I tell you what,
empty Old Trafford though.
How are they going to sell? They're going to have to do something to be selling them tickets. To people, they're going to have to get deals on and stuff to be urging fans of other clubs to buy them now.
Definitely so,
because it's we need a full Old Trafford. Don't
of course you do, absolutely. Kevlar Dig then.
Well, yeah, Kev Ogley. We finished with. So Kev's the fan who lives in Trinidad, who we were speaking about last week.
I was disinclined to let people who live in such lovely parts of the world be involved in the podcast. It's heartbreaking to think of his island life.
I'm sure it's, got his ups and downs.
I'm sure it has its ups and downs, yeah. Sometimes his hammock swing breaks.
Anyway, Kev says,
what do you have to say?
Now then, lads, thanks for the shout out last week. You asked what my story was, and I will get to that. But first, I want to thank you guys for helping expats re-engage with the game. We talk about the M62 corridor and about expansion, but a third group is just as important, i.e. getting people overseas who have drifted away from League back into following it. Typically, we have a few quid in our back pocket, but there is no one at work or the pub to chat to about the greatest game. Union is the only outlet for a bit of bash and a beer, and that isn't ideal. Since getting back into following League a few years ago, the Super League pod has helped me, and I'm sure others feel a part of a lively community celebrating a part of our culture we thought was long gone when we left England's green shores. Cheers.
Oh, cheers, Kev.
Yeah, that is an audience.
You are welcome to your life in Trinidad then. I'll take it all back.
That is an audience that we didn't anticipate, wasn't it, when we started this? And it's probably like the biggest parts of our audience are probably those, like the sort of three groups. There's the expats who are trying to find, or even not necessarily expats, but people who've drifted to different parts of the country, or have just fallen away for whatever reason and then found the game again and got in touch with us. And then you've got your group of people who were overseas but engaged completely in the game, like the Aussies and people like that, who just like it, they don't get a lot of the Super League coverage, let's say, compared, because there's not really much out there TV wise anymore, is there, unfortunately?
No.
You got Rugby AM whenever that's shown, once a month, is it? Or it's not weekly, is it? Is it weekly?
I think
is it weekly nowadays?
I've stopped.
Well, it's on that Made in Leeds, so it's hard to find to watch, isn't it? And then you've got the thing where they talk about it on, what's it called, Backchat.
Yeah.
But a third of that's devoted to the NRL anyway, because it's on the NRL broadcasting channel on Premier Sports. So you do have our bit with the fan stuff, and then you have the Radio Yorkshire guys who have a bit more analysis with fan stuff mixed in, and the stuff you get from Radio Manchester too, and they're great stuff. But really, there isn't that much, is there, for those sorts of people?
Yeah.
And then the third group is people who are a bit like us, who are like.
Go on. What's a bit like us?
Well, we love the game, but we don't necessarily feel like we have an outlet amongst maybe the traditional fan base or whatever.
Yeah. Well, we're a bit out on even we're a bit out on limb in Blackpool, really, in some respects, aren't we? So
Anyway, so Kev said, while probably more a cricketer, played first 13 for a champion university side and some academy and A-team rugby league. Favourite players were Jamie Bloom and Brett Mullins, which probably tells you as much about my age as the position I played. Rhino fan with a soft spot for Doncaster. My story is one as old as time. Boy meets girl, boy happens to be from Donny, girl from California. Through 15 to 20 years of living and travelling around the world with 2 kids born in South Africa and 1 in Malaysia. Currently in Trinidad for 3 years and getting ready to move on to the next place. Still on the field playing Union. the only place in the tropics to feel cold without aircon.
There you go.
And still championing our sport. Outside of the televised games, highlight of my week is Super League Pod. Our game has been and still is all about history, culture, heritage and community, and thanks for helping me refine mine.
Kev, they're exceptionally kind words, and thank you very much for letting us know all about yourself. I'm astounded you couldn't convince the lass from California to move to Doncaster now.
But they've got a nice pond by the keep, mate.
Exactly. There you go. It's all regen around Doncaster. You might want to give it a
retail park out that way as well.
Everything's coming up, Donny.
I think we could put that last bit on a strap line for a poster. I think that's fantastic. Our game has been and still is, and thanks for helping refine mine.
There you go.
Yeah.
What a lovely. Yeah, exactly.
That's a testimonial and a half, isn't it? We've had a couple of them over the weekend now. The guys all chatting to us and. It's humbling, isn't it?
It's wonderful. Thank you very much, and thank you to everyone who's said hello to us at the Bash, like I said, and been in touch and makes the show what it is. Right, that is your feedback and shout-outs taken care of. Let's take a look now at news from around the world of rugby league. So, to the news then, and we'll start down at the Totally Wicked Stadium where St Helens have signed fullback Ben Barber, but are seeking further and final clarification about whether he must serve his 12-match drug suspension. The ban was imposed by Australia's NRL in November of 2016. Barber is 27 and recently left French rugby union side Toulon, who he joined in a controversial code switch this February. The Rugby Football League says the NRL sanction will apply, but clarity is needed to determine if the ban is applicable outside that competition. Barber tested positive for cocaine and was suspended shortly after helping the Cronulla Sharks win the NRL title. What do you think to that one then? Well, at the moment it's a case of hurry up and wait, really, isn't it? Because if the RFL say you can't play for 12 games, then you can have minimal impact.
I just don't get what's shifted so much that Gareth Fock has a bit of coke at a barbecue and he's banned for 2 years and treated like a absolute, outsider and disgrace. Ben Barber gets tested for the same thing.
Well, is that down to the discretion of the governing bodies then? Because it's two different people,
but he's not. But he's in the same different. He's in the same. He's signed to play under the same governing body now.
Yeah, but do you think if Gazok had said, right, well, I'm going to go and
No,
play?
I'm just saying St Helens are a bit... I'd say they're a bit taking the piss by trying to... Obviously, they want to try and do it. They want to put the star man on the field as soon as possible.
Yeah.
But for me...
it's one for next season.
You're signing a guy with 12-game ban.
I think if you're banned, I think if you're banned from the sport, you should be banned from the sport. It shouldn't. It shouldn't be. If you're done in Australia, then you can go and play in England. I think it should apply internationally.
This is one of the things we were speaking about at the weekend, actually, about bans and how in football it's a bit like how it can apply. You can. I can't remember if I was speaking to this to someone at the bash or someone at the wedding. There's been a lot of beer, but how you can...
Were they into rugby league at the wedding? Was it?
I don't know. I can't remember. Football, you can be banned from internationals, but play for your clubs. I think it was with Phil I was talking about it, and he was saying like how Suarez, bites a guy in a World Cup, gets banned for a year from playing for Uruguay or whatever it was, but could play for Liverpool however much he wants.
True.
But then was banned for being, a vile racist, yet could play internationally or in European competitions as much as he wanted. And it's just, there's so much fragmentation, whereas in rugby league, we have always had that sort of upholding it through wherever kind of thing with it. And Union even more so, because they just give out week-term bans that no games involved, no game numbers involved, and if anything, if there's anything we could take from that game, it might be the disciplinary, where they handle disciplinary matters.
They do seem to have a bit more of a solid grasp on it in terms of international stuff, don't they? And like making sure things are enforced.
But in terms of the positives, absolute star name to join our league, and when he does play in week 4 or 5 of the Super 8s, then he'll be. It'll be very a real treat for the competition.
Absolutely. There you go. Staying with St Helens.
You may have.
I think he's a phenomenal player. Absolutely. I can't wait to see him play in our league. But it's like being told that Christmas is 12 weeks away. Do you know what I mean? It's great. It'll be really exciting. But there's 3 months before we get to see him, and then it might be a case of after Lord Mayor's show anyway, because there's every chance that with 4 games left in the middle eights, in the Super 8s, that Saints are out of it. So
for me, it's a bit like Christmas, but then it's 12 weeks away, then Christmas gets there, and your brother gets an amazing present, and you get some
exactly.
shit.
There you go. Yeah, you'd have had him at your sport, wouldn't you? Right, staying with talented young St Helens then. St Helens winger Regan Grace has signed a new 2.5-year contract after making his first team breakthrough in 2017. The Wales international, who's 20, made his